Did you know that house land sizes is getting smaller and smaller, and the cost per square meter is getting higher and higher and higher? According to Domain's Housing Affordability Report, the average block size in larger capital cities, for example Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, have shrank by 13% in 10 years. This graph by Domain shows the median block size of houses sold by capital cities. In 2012, per block is about 100 square meters. Now in 2022, which is stats taken last year, this represents Melbourne, this represents Adelaide, this represents Brisbane and Sydney. The median block size is getting smaller and smaller as they get sold in 2022. And look at the black line, Perth. Look how much of a reduction in land size as compared to about 2012. And mind you, that graph doesn't show the cost per square meter that has skyrocketed. That's totally out of proportion to the shrinkage of land available that's been sold. Now I read the report so you don't have to. I'll tabulate a summary of the cost per square meter of each capital city. So the most expensive capital city at the moment is Sydney, and Sydney now costs $2,466 on average per square meter. And currently Sydney is about 36% more expensive per square meter than Melbourne, which holds second place. At the moment, the average is $1,200 per square meter for Adelaide, Brisbane and Perth. So it's roughly half the price of Sydney. And in terms of regional areas, the highest growth per square meter has been Albury in New South Wales, Ballarat and Bendigo in Victoria, and Maroochy in Queensland. Now you might be scratching your head and wondering, why is this happening, Q? Well, most of the higher price tags per square meter are usually near like the CBD or the coast. So as people's prefer living closer to, the CBD and the coast, well, that drives up demand. And also there's been an influx of new residents into these capital cities. For example, migration into Sydney, or people leaving Victoria and going to Brisbane to start a new life. Internal migration. Now, thanks to Domain's report, they've actually categorized the affordability and size ranking as per capital city from 1 to 8. As you can see, where I'm part of, Sydney, it's the worst, coming last. But Darwin is pretty cheap, $737 per square meter. Then Hobart, Adelaide, Perth, Brisbane, Canberra and Melbourne. It's also interesting to see from the Domain report that the price per square meter by capital city, Sydney has gone through from 2012 to 2022. Look at the bloody growth. So if you bought early, like for example 10 years ago, and most of your properties are in Sydney, well, you're doing good. But if you're a first-time home buyer or a first-time investor, people that usually watch my TikToks, you might be asking, hey Q, how do I calculate price per square meter on that property that I'm buying? Well, if you have a property and the land size is about 300 square meters and it's costing you $750K, you just get $750K divided by 300, and that works out to be $2,500 per square meter. And then you can easily tabulate that on a table. For example, right here, you put number 1, the address, the price per square meter by just doing this formula. And then hopefully that gives you a little perspective on how each property compares to each other in terms of making an investment decision. Jump in the comments, let me know what you think. Haha!